I work in maintenance in a hospital, but this story comes from out of work hours. Back in November, my grandfather passed away. He had been living in a care home for several years now, and as we were from a smaller city, his main care aide was actually an ex's mother who I am still close to. Nearing his final days, she texted me that things weren't looking good, and to get my mum, who works out of town, and myself, to see him ASAP. The next 2 nights were exhaustive. Her and I barely left his bedside. We were wetting his lips, rubbing his head, and singing Charlie Pride, and telling him stories from my childhood and from my mum's. At one point, Is Anybody Going to San Antonio comes on the CD player, and Mum tears up, talking about how this song reminds her of her father the most. He wasn't really coherent besides a glimmering moment in the first day we got there, and by the final day we were sitting watching the breaths turn to choke breaths. As the hours got nearer, my ex's mum was contacted and came in on her day off to sit with us for that final hour. My mum had her father's head in her lap, and we still had Charlie Pride on the radio. She was whispering in her ear to stop being stubborn, and that she could take care of her brothers, and that she had me to take care of her. The gaps got longer and longer in his breaths. My ex's mum was sitting next to me, the CD player behind us, and my mum laying on the opposite side of the care home bed. All of a sudden his breathing stops, and in that moment so did the CD player. It hadn't skipped once the whole weekend. My mum figured Tyrene had turned it off, starting to sob, assuming it was to signify he was officially gone. I sat and looked at Tyrene like, did that just happen? And after a good 20 seconds out of nowhere he took a shuddery breath, and the CD scrambled forward, and the song just before Is Anyone Going to San Antonio, not sure if that's the name of the song, but it was about not wanting to miss someone, started playing. And then he was gone by the end of San Antonio, the song that Mum remembered him most by. Tyrene mentioned odd things happen more often than not as a person finally passes.